Welcome everyone to the NAACP Political Forum for the Jackson County Sheriff, Missouri 7th District State Senate, and later various Missouri House races. The NAACP is an information-only organization, so we do not take a stand or endorse a candidate. We are nonpartisan. And again, like I say, for information only. Our president, Anita Russell.
Hi, my name is Anita Corliss. I'm running for a committee woman of the 10th Ward. I'm also running for the 25th District for State Representative.
The other candidate for your candidate, ma'am?
Evelyn Taylor, committee woman, Ward 17.
Is there anybody else?
Here I am.
Here you are.
I am Rosa James, and I am committee woman elect. No one filed against me for the 7th Ward.
Thank you. Although everyone knows Rosa, so I don't know if you had to mention that. Well, at this point, I have nothing else to say, and I'm going to introduce, well, actually, I'll let the two moderators introduce themselves and hand the mic over to them out of the way.
Thank you. My name is Henry E. Lyons. I'm president of the Olathe branch of the NAACP. And I appreciate the Missouri branch for inviting me to moderate the program today.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Finley, and I'm also one of the co-moderators today. And I believe we had Councilman Reed was here. There he is. Jermaine, you want to stand up and introduce yourself?
I'm Jermaine Reed, member of the City Council from the 3rd District.
We appreciate Jermaine being here. Is there any other elected officials that are here? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the program this evening is a forum for elected officials and to give people the opportunity to meet them, to ask questions, and also to just encourage involvement is what we're trying to do. And I have a certain feeling about elections and a certain feeling about the voting process that I'm sure everyone shares. Because our voting process is a very important process. And unfortunately, we don't have the involvement that we really should have. Although I'm looking forward, I think, to an increase in that, as I hope all of you are also. But there was a thought or two that I wanted to share as part of the, at least opening the program here. And I want everyone to understand and recognize the serious personal undertaking that running for office is. Because it's expensive, it's difficult, it's time-consuming, it's aggravating. You put yourself out there, you go to hundreds of meetings just like this one. You try to convince people who you are, introduce yourself, try to express your ideas, and sometimes you get people that are pretty negative to you. And sometimes you get people who recognize and respect the fact that you're there. And I would hope our attitude tonight would be the latter. That we would recognize and respect the fact that these candidates did come to take part and participate. I know there may be people that you may not wish to support. There may be people that you don't know. But I think if we just conduct ourselves with a certain amount of dignity and courtesy, everyone will get more out of the program than otherwise. Okay? Now, we are going to begin, and I think Mike may have given you a brief introduction about, our format and how we're going to proceed. Henry, I think you have the information specifically, and we're going to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions also, Henry.
There are four main, I guess you could say regulations, rules, or whatever that I want to make sure that I'm going to remember. And the stands that was set up by the NAACP. Candidates will be introduced by the moderator and allowed 1 minute each for an opening statement to include their name, office salt, and a very brief resume. Candidates will be asked questions prepared by the Political Action Committee of the NAACP, which may be revised or followed up at the discretion of the moderator. Candidates will be allowed up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. Additional questions from the audience must be placed on index cards, which will be collected by runners and provided to the moderators. Audience questions will be selected at the discretion of the moderator. They may be reworded or combined to minimize repetition. Does everyone know about have those cards or the runners? Could you make yourself available? That's the lady right back there. So if you want a card, just raise your hand. She'll get you one. There's another lady right there. You want a card? The lady right here, I think, wants a card right here. That gentleman would like one. There's some other people that like one. And then during the course of the process here, if you need a card, raise your hand and they'll get you one if a question comes to your mind. Additional questions from the audience must be placed on index cards. We went over that part right there. Candidates will be allowed 1 minute for a closing statement at the end of the process here. So we're going to start right now with the candidates introducing themselves. 1 minute opening statement, include their name, office, salt, and a very brief resume. You can start right at the corner and continue down.
Hello, my name is Juan Lilliton. I am a candidate for Jackson County Sheriff. Brief resume. I'm a former deputy for Jackson County, a former police officer, a resident of Jackson County, but a son of the Kansas City, Missouri School District. I am a former community developer and teacher.
She's keeping time. Rose is keeping time right there. She's letting you know you got a half minute left.
You have 45 seconds.
45 seconds. Yes. Brief resume, office salt, include your name. Is that it? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Randy Poitis, and I'm a candidate for sheriff also. Hi, I'm Randy Poitis. I'm a candidate for sheriff also, and I've been a policeman for 38 years. Last 21 years in Kansas City, Jackson County, split between 13 years chief of police in eastern Jackson County, and then the rest of the time on the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, where I work with street narcotics, fugitive apprehension, metro patrol, and eastern patrol station. I'm acutely aware of the problems facing the inner city, and I'm very aware of the problems facing eastern Jackson County. I welcome the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
We're going to go ahead, sir, even though we're going to do everything, man.
I'm State Representative Jason Holtzman. I represent South Kansas City and Grandview in the Missouri House of Representatives. I was first elected in 2006. Before that, I was a high school teacher at Van Horn High School in the Kansas City, Missouri School District. I coach football and baseball. My wife, Robin, is a 4th grade school teacher at Redbridge Elementary in the Center School District. I chair the Committee on Renewable Energy, and I chair the Committee on Urban Agriculture. And I am glad to be here and look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate your introduction. We're going to go ahead and do your office too, even since you're here and the other person is not here. We'll do everything all at once. First question that we have is for the people running for Jackson County Sheriff. What is the biggest challenge facing Jackson County law enforcement in the next term?
I believe the biggest challenge right now facing the sheriff's office and facing law enforcement in Jackson County in general is the alarming homicide rate.
I believe that the overall and overreaching issues that are at Jackson County right now is the ability to, one, communicate with individual communities, partnering with agencies that can help alleviate the crime, not just the homicides, but all crime in Jackson County, including Eastern Jackson County. I think that it's very important that when we think about crime, that we think about it in a global perspective. And that includes robberies, rapes, homicides, any of those things that affect us and affect the quality of life. The biggest problem that we're facing right now is building those partnerships and engaging the community. And when I say community, I mean the churches, schools, neighborhood associations, the businesses, all of them, because it takes all of us to ensure that we alleviate and deal with the crime that we have in our community.
We can go ahead.
Hold tight just a minute.
Okay.
That was 1 minute. Are you giving
How many minutes are supposed to be?
1 minute?
2 minutes? Yeah.
I thought you gave them 2 minutes, and they are cutting it really short.
Maybe they're directed to the point.
Okay.
I admire that they know.
That means you have 1 more minute.
Okay, well, I like a political person that's directed to the point myself.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have 2 minutes to answer. Okay. For the senator, since we're going to, sorry with you, Anita, if we do this now too, since the other Senate person's not here, you want us to wait, ask him the questions also? Okay, well, let me do it. The first question from the committee for you, sir, is what is your legislative agenda to benefit your district, and what do you believe you could actually get accomplished in 1 or 2 terms?
Okay, Jason, this is what I wanted to ask both of you, and just a little lead-in, if I may. Both you and your opponent have worked in Jefferson City, as you have indicated as a state representative, okay? And you are aware, and we're all aware, of the vast Republican majority that you're dealing with down there, and that you're coming as a representative of Jackson County, Democratic Jackson County. And the question that I wanted you to think about and wanted you to, both of you to respond to, or you to respond to, as the case may be, dealing with that Republican majority, as I know you have had to do the last few years, what is going to be your personal strategy to get anything done for Jackson County?
Well, thank you for the question. For the last 6 years, I have been in a very significant minority, being that this last cycle, I was one of 57 Democrats out of 163. I think it's important to build coalitions, to work on your relationships while not compromising your values or your principles. Now, I have never taken a vote in any of the time that I was not 100% comfortable that that was the right thing for my district. But that doesn't mean that every day I'm there trying to destroy, for the sake of, any type of progress. The Republicans are in the majority. That is a fact of elections in this state. Now, we have a choice. We can either choose to show up every day and do the best we can and try to make their legislation better, or we can be ineffective and not a part of the discussion. Over 6 years, I have chosen to be a part of the discussion. I've chosen to roll up my sleeves, bring my tool belt to work, and say, how can I make the house that you're trying to make this state live in safer to live in? I may not be able to vote for it when it's over with, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that it's a safe and it's a good built house. And I think that that's an important aspect, and I wish Washington, D.C. would have a little bit more of that attitude. We might be able to get some of these problems that the country faces solved. I intend to go down there, just as I have, like I said, I chair 2 committees. You don't chair 2 committees without having some ability to work with the other side, to cross the aisle and say, did you realize that this is how this legislation impacts my constituents? And if you do it in a way that's coming from a position of facts, and that's coming from a position of being educated on the issues, 9 out of 10 times the other side will listen. And you can have an impact, and you can move the ball forward for our issues by trying to build those coalitions, and that's what I will continue to do.
Okay, the second question from the committee is for the candidates for Jackson County Sheriff. What is the role of the Jackson County Sheriff in keeping our young people out of the legal system or in getting them into diversion programs for nonviolent offenses?
Well, I believe we have an obligation to try to ensure that they have every opportunity offered by the system to develop and to correct their behavior if they're found to be in violation of some ordinance, rule, regulation, or law. And we should be very open to using the combat funds for treatment, if anyone needs treatment, or if they need to go to drug court, or they need to be diverted to another agency to take care of their welfare. I think a lot of that comes from home and the home life that they live and how they develop as young adults. And I believe the sheriff's office should be open to helping the young people in the community all across from eastern Jackson County to the west side of Jackson County, all over, so everyone gets treated the same and offered the same opportunity for treatment programs.
Question was, what is the role of the Jackson County Sheriff in keeping our young people out of the legal system or in getting them into diversion programs for nonviolent offenses?
Well, I think we have a significant role. The role of the sheriff in general is the highest ranking law enforcement agency or officer in the county. They're in charge and their duties allow them to do some things that with great latitude. Now, one of the things that we haven't done, and we haven't done this the right way, which is partnership with not only like I said, the churches and community centers, but we have a partnership in regards to bringing services and acknowledging services that are available through to the community. For example, we talk about the court system. I work for the court system. And let me tell you, it's very hard to have a kid who's not in the court system get any type of services. For example, if you have a kid that has stolen a car, and you know he stole a car but just never got caught. You went to juvenile detention or any place like that, or even a police officer said, hey, I know this kid stole a car, I just didn't get caught, or I know my kid's in trouble. Then what would happen is that kid may get a tongue lashing from a DJO or a police officer, but in regards to finding services that are diversion services, they're available only to those who are in the court system. And we have an opportunity to partner with these court systems, ensure that they are not punitively damaging our kids. But we also have to start in the schools. We need to build a strong partnership with those individuals in the schools. We all know that our community has an illness, and a large percentage of those illnesses are we don't have the tools to deal with as we had in the past. A lot of times we've been through legislation or through just regulation in regards to local level of the city. We haven't had, the budgets have been cut, so the programs aren't there.
All right, time is up. Just to let you know, we're receiving your questions here. We have 4 more questions from the Political Action Committee to have them answered, then we're going to go right into your questions.
Jason, what will your legislative agenda be if you are, for the people of your district, if you are in fact elected in the circumstances that we've talked about? What specifically, if you have any specific ideas of what you're going to try to accomplish?
Thank you. I have 2 priorities as the next senator from the 7th District. The first one will be to address the unaccredited issue of the Kansas City, Missouri School District. Because until we work on that, until we fix that, there are so many collateral impacts that an unaccredited school district makes, whether it's attracting new businesses, whether it's retaining our businesses, whether it's having executives who move here decide to settle in Kansas City proper or move to Lee Summit or Liberty or Leawood. I think fixing and focusing on the Kansas City, Missouri School District so that we can have an educated workforce ready for the 21st century economy is crucial. And the second part of that is creating jobs for those young people who graduate to have when they get out of school. And I will work on, as I have the last 6 years, renewable energy and urban agriculture. I think we should create a localized food system. We should have our energy production be localized and clean and renewable and sustainable. And those two industries will produce jobs that cannot be outsourced. Urban agriculture has the ability to produce jobs in an area that has been hit hardest with unemployment, right in the urban core. We have blighted buildings that haven't had any economic activity in them for years. There's no reason why we cannot apply the technology that we have right now, couple it with renewable energy systems, and start the 21st century sustainable communities that we all know we have to do. And that'll be some of the focus that I put my effort into. Thank you.
For the candidates for sheriff, your next question is, what do you intend to do to assure equitable hiring and promotion practices for women and minority candidates for employment in the Sheriff's Department?
Well, I believe while I was chief of police for 13 years, I want to hire the very best people for the job. And I want to make that opportunity open to all minorities to come apply and to be well respected and well received when they come in and put their application in. I do believe that the sheriff's office has fallen short of actually going out and recruiting minorities for employment. And I would like to see that change. And if I was elected, I would see that changed by hiring the most qualified minorities and females and Caucasians that we can find to run the sheriff's office.
The Sheriff's Department currently has estimated about 122 full-time employees. Out of that 122, of patrolmen, or people that are actually law enforcement, we have about 6. We have no supervisory level minorities in regards to African Americans or Hispanics. We have one captain who's African American. He has been there since the 80s. We have 2 colonels who are selected by the sheriff, who don't live in this county, and who happen to be Caucasian. So in order to fix that, in order to change that, there is a great pool out there, and it is the Jackson County Jail. People who are already involved in corrections, who already deal with individuals who are inmates or have warrants or anything like that, we can pull from the jail. In my time in Kansas, there have been several young brothers that have approached us. Brothers that said, hey, I'm retired, or I left the U.S. military. How do I become a deputy sheriff? There are people out there that are qualified and hired. No criminal records, no felonies or anything. I think the issue becomes whether or not we're seeking those individuals. That's the issue. So what I would like to do is, one, go into the community colleges, go into the neighborhoods, talk to young people as they get ready to graduate from high school, but more importantly, we have to start at the top. So I'm going to tell you as sheriff, one of my priorities will be to hire a minority, whether it be a female. She will be the second in charge will either be a female or a male and a minority descent. We have to break that ceiling.
Jason, the governor recently vetoed a bill that would have allowed employers or health insurance providers to deny women coverage for birth control and other and other reproductive health services, if doing so violated the religious beliefs of those persons who were dispensing or providing these health services. I think there is anticipated to be an attempt to override. What would your position be on that legislation?
The same as it was when it first came through, which is a no. I will vote to uphold the governor's veto in this instance. The legislation was sponsored by our floor leader, Tim Jones, and during the floor debate, I had an opportunity to inquire of him, and he and I exchanged discussion on this bill, and I asked him, had he thought through what the unintended consequences might be of this legislation? And I gave him an example. I said, okay, if you have someone whose religious faith has them as a conscientious objector, and they do not believe that war is moral, and a soldier is wounded in battle and brought to the hospital, does that mean that that individual who objects to war would not have to provide medical services and treatment to that soldier because they didn't think that that wound was received in a way that they believed was moral? And he really did not have an answer for that, but the same principles and logic apply to what this law does, except for in this application it's politically charged to try to deny women access to the one thing that we know prevents abortions. If the Republican majority is so concerned with stopping abortions in this state, why would they take away the one proven scientific thing that prevents abortions? And there is no answer for that, because the agenda that the Republican majority is pushing is politicized. It's about running for office. Who's running for which office next? And how are they using this as a wedge issue to fire their base up, to get folks to turn out to the polls so that they can maintain their power? It's not about what's in the best interest of the woman. It's not about what's in the best interest of medical science. It's about what's in the best interest of their political power. And I stood up against it as a state representative, and I'll stand up against it as your senator.
Okay, candidates for sheriff. I assume you're aware of the study that just came out that shows there's been an increase in stops of minorities by the sheriff's department. I assume both of you are aware of that, as we in the audience are. So the question is, what would you do to reduce the prevalence of racial profiling in the sheriff's office?
Well, I've been to several of these forums where some people from the inner city have bragged that they are happy to see the sheriff's office now taking an active role of being more in Kansas City. I believe there's a problem right there, because the sheriff's office does not need to be in Kansas City duplicating law enforcement services that the Kansas City Police Department already provides. If the Kansas City Police Department asks for assistance, I believe the sheriff's office has an immediate duty to respond and help them. But to run up and down Prospect and cherry pick and write people tickets all throughout the inner city, you're only hurting the people, you're not helping them. And I believe that we should return to doing what the duties are required of the sheriff. Yes, it's Jackson County Sheriff, but it's not Jackson County Sheriff to take over law enforcement services in all these first-class cities. That's my opinion on that, and I believe if you stop doing that, you'll see that disparity index go back to the way it should be.
I'm glad you asked that. You know, first of all, I think it's important to point out and not sugarcoat the issue when we talk about racial profiling, that this only began, the large increase only began in 2008. And we all know who took office in 2008. So I think that's important to identify. Now, I think the way you handle something like that is you have to have a good manager in place. The sheriff is simply a manager. His job is to manage his troops and manage the budget that he's assigned. Now, these numbers here, he had ample access to these numbers before they went to the Attorney General's office. Ample access. He had monthly data. He had weekly data. And at the end, he had yearly data for 2008, 2009, 2010, and 2011. This can be corrected with a good manager. Someone who can look at these stats and say, I see a problem. I'm identifying a problem here. Not just because they went into Kansas City and stopped everyone, supposedly, but it only reflects a 300% increase in African American stops. The unfortunate thing is that that individual is not here to answer to that. What I would say is that we need to train. It involves training. It involves the ability to have a good manager, someone that is doing their job. That's what it involves. It involves someone able to do their job. This, you can't fall asleep on racial profiling. He fell asleep. That's why we ended up with this. He let his officers do whatever they wanted to do when they wanted to do. And at the end, the people that suffered were the 300%. Thank you.
Okay, audience question. Jason, you mentioned fixing the Kansas City, Missouri School District. Does that mean dismantling the school board, or as an alternative, how would you recommend fixing the Kansas City, Missouri School District?
Thank you. Well, as you all know, this problem has subsisted for the better part of 2 decades. I taught 4 or 5 years in the Kansas City, Missouri School District, so I have a primary experience as a teacher seeing the challenges every day. And my answer to that question is we have not taken a look at what causes student failure. You can change the school board. You can put Jefferson City in charge of it. You can fire all the teachers and hire brand new ones, and it's still not going to solve the problem. The problem has to do with hunger. It has to do with domestic violence. It has to do with crime on the streets. It has to do with bullying in schools. It has to do with the fact that we don't have high enough parental involvement. It has to do with a holistic approach to what kind of community the kids are growing up in, and addressing those things that which we can focus on, such as creating early childhood development opportunities, getting kids ready to go before they get into kindergarten. That means prioritizing resources to expand seats for Montessori schools and other types of early childhood development, so every single kid in the Kansas City School District has the proper vocabulary and the preparation necessary to be successful on day one. We have to re-engage the parents with continued adult education classes. We have to find better employment for the citizens who live in those core in order to turn the tide of poverty. Because the school district is systemic of a greater issue, which is the high unemployment rates that we face, the transient nature of the families, the fact that they don't know if their utility bills are going to be kept on at the end of the month. And all of those things make it very difficult for students to learn. And until we address those issues, we can dismantle the school board, we can put whoever you want in charge of it, but we're not going to see achievement change until we address what's stopping achievement.
Okay, for the next couple of questions, we're going to reverse the order of response and let John respond first, and you respond second. The next question for the sheriff candidates are, how does or could the sheriff work with Combat Commission to coordinate efforts to fight drug crime in our community?
Well, the Sheriff's Department currently works with the Combat Commission on dealing with drugs in our community. they're allocated a certain amount of money that's issued, and it's not really the sheriff's department. They're a separate entity. It's called the Jackson County Drug Task Force. And that entity, in and of itself, is in charge of dealing with methamphetamines, crack, cocaine, and marijuana, and dealing with drug houses and community impact. So when you drive by in our community, which we see so often, the Combat label, that is in partnership with Combat and in partnership with the Drug Task Force. What the Sheriff's Department can do, the Sheriff's Department can, one, help deal with the calls for service in local municipalities. We can't do that. There are forms that we take that are universal at the state level, for example, a traffic accident. We may not be able to affect a crime by when you dial 911, you don't get us, but what we can do is work in competition with Kansas City so that when Kansas City needs to respond to a high priority call, they're not stuck on an accident, because we can take that. Those are simple things to do. And once again, it involves good management. It involves someone that is not asleep at the wheel, but always looking at the community and being able to utilize all of the skills and all the programs and involving a process that will allow for the Sheriff's Department to come into a community, whether it be Kansas City, Greenwood, Oak Grove, or Legacy, and work with those community, the citizens, community, and the government.
The Jackson County Drug Task Force actually splits combat funds with the Kansas City Police Department. Half goes to basically Eastern Jackson County for the Drug Task Force out there to operate, and the other half goes to Kansas City Drug Enforcement Unit, and the other half of the combat money goes to treatment and care. The 13 years that I was chief, I served on the chairman of the Jackson County Drug Task Force on the committee as a chairperson and the treasurer for the last 8 years. And I believe the combat funds being utilized by the Drug Task Force are being used in the proper manner. And I believe everyone's working towards eradicating drugs and crime in Jackson County. It's a big job to stay on top of everything. It's a big job to do the investigations and make sure that when you find somebody selling dope in the eastern part of the county, that Kansas City Police Department doesn't already have a case on them. So you have to deconflict those things and all work together. And I believe that overall, the Sheriff's Office and all the law enforcement agencies in Jackson County are working together to solve these drug crimes. They've made some really good strides. The DART program, boarding up the drug houses in Kansas City, and now the initiative to remove these blighted houses from your communities is really a step in the right direction.
Question from the audience. The Bannister Federal Complex is a state concern. Citizens are sick and dying and want audiences with the appropriate state agencies. What are those agencies, and will you assist in making that happen?
Yes, I will. The Bannister Federal Complex is actually not in the 7th District, but that doesn't matter to me because I believe in representing the entire greater Kansas City area. And you have an excellent senator in Kiki Curls. She does a great job representing that area in the Senate. And I will work with her, I will talk with her about that concern and see where we can be most effective at trying to get the necessary answers to the individuals asking the questions. I actually do not have the answer of who would be the most effective. I know that there are some people who have worked at the NNSA complex who have information. We have a community advisory board that was set up. I had an appointment on that board. I appointed Klaus Worsnack, who serves on that board, and I'd be happy to follow up on this subject with those who may know more about it in order to get a more direct and concise answer.
Okay, this is the last question from the NAACP's committee. We're going to the audience's questions next. Would you support allocation of a larger portion of combat funds to prevention and treatment as opposed to incarceration? None?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We spend more money on incarcerating folks than we do on educating, than we do on any type of preventive treatment. I think that part of diversion is considered treatment, and I think that when we talk about treatment, we're not just talking about medicine. We're not just talking about medicine. I think that's important. But we're talking about counseling. We're talking about therapeutic treatments. And I think that, and it's proven in Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Philadelphia, that it works. We just have to be willing to take that step. Can't keep doing business as usual. Can't keep locking folks up. We know that's not working. They come out, they do the same thing over and over again. There must be a change. And part of that's going to be treatment. Part of it has to be treatment. So I'm in whole support of that.
Well, that's probably where we differ. I'm not in support of that. And I believe the money should be split half equally, and the treatment programs should be able to function on their own and have the equal amount of money to operate without any separate control. And then the law enforcement services need the other half to do their job. And there's a lot of money involved in equipping people, putting them out, gasoline, all the things that go into operating these task forces. An equal amount of money needs to be separated in the treatment programs. I had the opportunity to work in the arraignment section of the Kansas City Police Department, be in drug court each and every day. And I think that when Judge Mason had originally started drug court in Kansas City, it turned into a really a good opportunity for people that want to correct their life. I don't believe that we should just give people an open door to go out and commit crimes, go to drug court and get out and go commit more crimes. You successfully complete the program, you become an active member of the community, and you do your part of your work every day. That's one thing. You go back out and return to a life of crime, I think you need to be locked up.
Jason, a related question. What is the current status of reentry programs in the Department of Corrections? And what action would you take as far as increasing the effectiveness of funding of those programs?
Thank you. Well, I actually probably have a little bit of a different perspective on this subject. I think it is very troublesome that in 1970, the correctional budget in the state of Missouri was $18 million. And this year, it was $650 million plus. So in 30 years, we have spent an additional, that budget has increased from $18 million to over $600 million in locking people up. I think that is a mismanagement of resources. It is a direction. It is a direction that is inherently racist. You can see in the number of minorities who suffer at the hands of the judicial system for possession of drugs. Now, we were successful this year in reducing the disparity between crack cocaine and cocaine. 75 times more severe penalty for someone who was arrested for crack cocaine than someone who was arrested for powder cocaine. And that disparity was solved by the Democrat leadership of Tashara Jones in St. Louis, our assistant Democrat leader, and Chris Kelly from Columbia. They pushed it on the last day. We were successful in getting that done. That's one small step to reduce the inequity. Now, I think that as a country, we should take a look at how successful the drug war has been. And we should look and see what the casualty rate has been for our young people, and maybe, just maybe, try something different.
Okay, we're going to go now with questions from the audience. Here's one I think is kind of controversial. The war on drugs has proven to be unsustainable and ineffective. What alternatives do you propose to incarceration for simple drug possession?
I believe we have a good drug court, and I believe people are given an opportunity to correct their life and operate normal behavior without selling drugs. And if they do get caught for a minor offense, probation is available, drug court's available, and I think we have alternatives to locking people up. And I'm talking about people need to be in jail. If you want your communities to be safe, you have to lock these people up that are making money selling drugs. That's just the way it is. And to think anything else is being naive, because these people are out here robbing, stealing every day to support their habits, and every one of you that are decent, law-abiding citizens are possible victims of these crimes that these people commit to get this money. And if we don't lock up people that are trying to commit crimes and live off of us, then we're making a mistake. Now, I'm all for giving people a break the first time, the second time, but I'm not going to let them continue to operate with a life of crime.
Listen, we have had a war on drugs, we've had a war on poverty, a war on education, a war on hunger, we've had a war on almost everything. Anything that we felt was important to impact our community, we put war in front of it, we gave the government a lot of money to deal with it. And guess what? We haven't won one of them. Not one of them have we won. There's no measurements in place to determine whether or not we won any of them. However, we continue to give money to these type of organizations or these programs. Unlike my opponent, I feel this way. The drugs are in our community. There needs to be another option. As the state rep said, look at the budgets. Look where all the money's going. We haven't allocated any money towards schools. The very first thing, no offense, Representative, the very first thing that's cut at the state level is education. We don't even choose, we choose to put someone, incarcerate someone where it costs more to keep them there on a daily basis than to educate our community. And I don't care where we're from, Kansas City, anywhere, Greenwood, Legacy, Lone Jack. We spend more time and put more people in business because it's about business. The prison system is a business. You haven't figured that out yet? Read the new Jim Crow. Amen? Read the new Jim Crow. We need to, one, figure out and work with the institutions around. We need to allow our court system to have the flexibility to send treatment because our court systems themselves are defunct. We need to make sure that our judges are sitting their butts in the benches all the time. Thank you.
All right. Jason, do you support the concept of the bill or the bills that have been introduced that would allow those with drug convictions to eventually have access to food stamp benefits?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's a travesty that, and this goes further with student loans. I mean, if you're a high school student and you get caught with a quarter bag of marijuana and you get a tough judge and he decides to maximize the sentence to you, you can't get student loans. I mean, what kind of sense does that make for a society who is about educating its young people to say that if you experimented with this substance and you got caught doing it, unlike the rest of the statistics that didn't get caught, you now are prohibited from going to college. Or to your point, you now are prohibited from receiving food stamps that will keep you alive. It's something that needs to change. And if we want to have some real talk, the pharmaceutical companies get to parade their endless number of drugs on TV and run commercials. They have all of these hidden side effects, but if they have one positive benefit that they can make money on, they're out there peddling it with impunity. And you put a seed in the ground, and you water it, you let the sun grow it up, and you get caught with that in your backyard, and you're going to jail for 10 years. And I think that is wrong. And I think that too long, politicians have been too scared to tell the truth of what the drug war has cost our community, not only in real dollars in terms of budgets, but in emotional cost with families who lose loved ones, and to get denied access to college, and get denied access to food stamps. I'm a John Stuart Million in a way that says, if you're an adult of right years, and you're doing something that's self-regarding activity that's in and of you and your own morality, then the government doesn't have the job to regulate what you're doing. And I think that far too long, the government oversteps its bounds and decides to go into this paternalist way to try and control, because they know that through that control, they are establishing economic parameters for markets that allow for economic commerce to occur without the discussion of the consequences of what they're doing. And I think that it is time to have genuine discussions about what it is that our laws are doing to our communities, especially when they are designed, maybe perhaps not designed, but the unintended impact is greater for one community than another. And I think that the drug war has taken its toll on the minority community, and it's time we recognize it and start talking about genuine solutions to change it.
Okay, in order of fairness, we're going to switch back and let Will John go first this time, and we're trying to alternate it to be fair. Here's another question from the audience. Residents in eastern Jackson County pay for the Sheriff's Department with property taxes. The Sheriff's Department has recently started assessing fees to municipalities for dispatching, radio, tower usage, etc. Some residents feel they are paying twice for the same service. Do you agree with this new policy? If not, what changes would you make in how tax revenue is spent to avoid such fees?
I am not in the full loop on what that policy had, whatever happened with that policy. I'm not sure what policy that is, so I don't want to dive too deep into it. But one of the things I will say is that we do pay for a service, not just Eastern Jackson County, but Jackson County as a whole pays for an E911 service. And in doing that, it is supposed to cover 911 service to jurisdictions or communities. It allows me to pick up a phone and dial 911 and get the police. That's what it does. Everybody has it on their bill. Everyone. What I will say is that if that is the case, and those municipalities feel that it's unfair, me as sheriff would love to sit down with them, have a conversation, and find a compromise, because I believe there's always a compromise. I know there is.
About 10 years ago, the Sheriff's Office tried to charge the cities for dispatching services in eastern Jackson County. And for you that are not aware of that, the cities of Greenwood, Lake Lotawana, Green Valley, Oak Grove, Buckner, all those cities on the eastern side of 439. The cities got together as a group, and all their board of aldermen and city council people got together, and we had a large outpouring of citizens at Oak Grove and Community Center, and the legislatures that came saw the people were unhappy with it and did not pursue it. Therefore, we did not charge people additional fees, which is actually duplication of taxation. It's my understanding now that the sheriff implemented that same policy again to all these cities, and now all of them pay a certain amount of money every year for dispatch services. I believe that's uncalled for. I believe that the sheriff's budget does not need an additional $125,000 or $30,000 that we're charging these cities for. It doesn't really affect the urban area here, but it affects these smaller cities that the budgets are tight, and for them to have to put out another $10,000 or $15,000 a year, that money could be better utilized. And if I were sheriff, I would stop that policy the day I walked into office.
Jason, in February of 2012, Missouri was one of 49 states that signed into a foreclosure settlement with some of the nation's largest banks regarding the foreclosure practices that had been in place and implemented by those banks. Now, what should be done with Missouri's share of that settlement, which we understand is roughly $38 million?
Well, this is one of those things where I wish my brain was bigger. You know, I wish I had an answer that would take that $38 million and solve the problem. But I don't think that I can tell you that that's what's going to happen. It took a long time for us to get into this foreclosure crisis. There were a lot of blame to go around on how we got here. Hedge fund managers, the bank executives, the politicians, Freddie and Fannie, the irresponsible consumers. Everybody has a little bit to blame for why the housing market burst. But we know that home ownership for a community builds roots. It's a part of the bedrock that makes a neighborhood safe, that gets individuals to repair their homes and mow their yards and build new fences and paint the exterior and do things that continue the progress of a safe and healthy community. And I don't know if that $38 million is going to be allocated properly. Anytime you have budget shortfalls like we've had the last couple of years, it's really hard not to have all sorts of priorities start to compete against each other to say, what should we do with this money? But if we can use this money to keep people in their homes, if we can use this money to improve and increase home ownership for communities that were hit the hardest by this foreclosure crisis, then that is a direction that I would like to see the state go in with the resources. And if that conversation is going to be had next session, I would like to be at that table to hear the competing interests, to hear the different sides on where other folks think that the money should be spent, and to be an advocate for the residents in the 7th District to try to make sure that that money is spent in a way that goes directly to the crisis that was faced and how to come up with a better tomorrow for the citizens affected the worst.
Okay, this next question, I'm going to try to paraphrase it because I think it's interesting. Don't know if it's exactly accurate or not, but possibly should be looked into if you're going to be shared. Basically, the questionnaire wants to know if some funds that are used by combat, it seems that they feel are not being used the way they were legislatively supposed to be used. So, not knowing whether that's true or not, if that is the case, what would you do, or what stops would you have in place to make sure those funds that combat are used the way they're supposed to be used?
Well, first of all, I want to make it clear that the Sheriff's Department does not, and has not in the past, govern the combat funds. It is governed by a group of commissioners that are picked by the county executive. And so that question would be better posed to him, but I would say that the sheriff's responsibility is that if there's malfeasance or a crime afoot, or at the level of the county, we would do our job and investigate and prosecute those who are guilty.
I agree with Juan. There's criminal intent the misappropriation of combat funds that should be pursued. I believe the first step would be by the powers that be to implement a forensic audit with an outside auditor firm to see exactly if the money is being misappropriated and not just operate on a knee-jerk reaction or thought that someone's not doing the right thing. Let's make sure that the people are adhering to the rules and regulations by having a forensic audit first.
All right. This was a question from the audience, and this will be the last question for the senatorial candidate. And then we're going to, after Henry's question, we're going to go to the state representatives after a short break. Now, Jason, Kansas City, Missouri is losing companies significantly to Kansas. How can Kansas City retain these jobs? And what can you feel that you can do as a senator to assist the city of Kansas City, Missouri in this competition?
Thank you. This last session, I was the lead sponsor for House Bill 2044. We had 17 co-sponsors. Every member of the Kansas City delegation in the surrounding areas co-sponsored this bill, both Republicans and Democrats. And we call it the Border War Economic Incentive Ceasefire. And what it would do is put a 30-mile radius around Kansas City. And the state of Kansas would also have to approve the measure as well, the exact language. And any company that moved inside that 30-mile bubble would get a prorated amount of incentives of what was offered. So for example, if a company was going to move from downtown Kansas City to Lenexa, and the move was 5 miles, they would get 5/30ths of whatever the incentive was offered. And that would make the move non-palatable. It would not provide the incentives necessary to justify the cost of switching buildings, moving personnel, all of that. So if Kansas would come on board with us with this piece of legislation, it would almost ensure that we would stop poaching each other's businesses back and forth across state lines for a net negative gain for our region. When a business moves from Missouri to Kansas or Kansas to Missouri, the shareholders or the owners of those companies get the incentives. But the people who provide that public money lose. And they lose because no net new revenue was created for the area. The school districts suffer, the infrastructure, and the taxes going to the municipalities and the state suffer. And in 2009, we saw the state of Kansas get the soccer stadium from the state of Missouri while simultaneously giving one of the wealthiest men in Missouri $193 million of STAR bonds to build a soccer stadium. They raised their sales tax to 6.5%, and they cut teachers out of their crown jewel school district, Blue Valley. Now, if I was a Kansas resident, I would look at that and say, hey, wait a minute. That does not make sense for our state to be doing, but yet they did it. And until we put legislation in front of them that will stop that type of behavior, it will continue. And we will all lose until we get our arms around the problem. And I have a bill and a solution that will do that. If I'm elected senator, I will make it happen.
Okay, this is the last question for the sheriff's candidates, and basically from the questions that we're getting from the audience, there seems to be one theme that seems to be more people concerned about than others. For example, one question was, how do you plan to stop the violence in the streets? Are you going to create a place where youth can go have fun and be safe and free? How or what will you do to help the young people to get involved and stay out of trouble? What are some specific things the Sheriff's Department can do to deal with youth violence in Jackson County? So there seems to be a concern about the youth violence. Would you address these questions, please, or your particular thoughts about these issues?
That was like 4 questions. We'll get like 4 minutes.
Yeah. Talk fast.
All right, real quick. Let me first of all address the fact that
we do have some issues with our youth. Between the ages of 13 and 28 is where our violent crime occurs. 13 and 28, folks. We have a 13-year-old that has been convicted, or actually sitting in juvenile court for murder. That's deplorable. We are going to have to do more as a community. It's always been stated it takes a community to raise a child. It still has to happen. It still has to happen. The sheriff's department alone cannot be Superman. You all seen the movie Superman's Not Coming. He's not. We're Superman. So when we put on our capes, and we walk out our doors, and we open up our homes, and we talk to our neighbors. I mean, people come to work, go to work, come home, don't open your doors, don't talk to your neighbors. We need to be more community-minded. We have to be more community-minded. We have to talk to those kids. You know, I grew up in an area not too far away from me, Charlie Parker Square. And I had the opportunity to watch a young man die right in front of me. I gave him his very last breath. I administered CPR. I was 13 years old. I was 13. And the only reason why I knew CPR was because I was a Boy Scout. That has to stop. It has to stop now. The Sheriff's Department can't do it alone. We need your help. We need the churches to come out of the four walls. Period. I don't care what anybody says about that. We need our legislators. We need our legislators to stand up and speak out when things are wrong and stop making laws that are putting scarlet letters on our community, that are hurting our community. We need everyone to come out and speak.
I think we need to partner with the business community a little bit on this too. This has just been an ongoing problem for a really long time. With the cooperation of the business community and the support of everybody, I believe there could be some centers for these young people to go to. I know we've tried that before and it didn't work, but you really have to reach out and do this as a governmental type thing where you actually have, if the sheriff's office is going to play a role or the police department's going to play a role, you absolutely have to supervise these events. And you have to have it in a location where everybody can have fun and have transportation to get back and forth. I think that's a possibility. The partnership with, like Jason said, some of the large corporations and open some centers throughout the entire metropolitan area for the youth to go to. And I think the sheriff's office and police departments could all provide personnel to supervise it, because you cannot allow those type of functions with large groups of young people to go and do what young people do when they fuss and fight and elevates into something else. But I think with the proper supervision, all the young people can have a nice time, or at least have the opportunity to go have a nice time. But it does start at home. We all know that.
Are there any other political leaders here that we haven't recognized that came in late? Melvin Curls, are you here? Is she here? All right, Melvin Curls, 3rd District. Any other political leaders here that we came in we haven't recognized?
Senator Wilson.
Senator Wilson, are you here? All right. Anybody else here? Okay. If not, we want to thank the candidate. Oh, that's right. You're right. You know the rules better than I do. We'll have 1 minute of roll to close in. We'll thank you for coming.
Thank you. I just wanted to really take my 1 minute and thank you guys for being here tonight. It's hot outside. These sometimes aren't the most riveting and exciting forums for our young people who came to listen. I hope that you heard something tonight that inspires you to stay involved and stay engaged and run for your school, whatever school body president or whatever opportunities you have. If you heard something tonight, if you heard a candidate tonight, rather it's any of us or the ones you're about to hear that you like, that struck a chord, that you think that is the person who's going to bring the change to your community, I encourage you to get involved. Call them. I promise you there will not be a candidate who says, no, I don't need your help. We all could use the help from the community. And I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself tonight and for you to ask your questions. And I hope that we all work together to make this place better, regardless of who wins the elections, because it's that important that we have a better place to live than when we started. So thank you.
I thank you for the opportunity to come out here tonight. I've been a Kansas City guy all my life. I grew up here and understand the problems that we all have. And given the opportunity to be your sheriff, I'll reach out to everybody I can and help each and every one of you keep it along.
First of all, I want to thank the NAACP for putting on a forum that no one else had the courage to put on. No one else had the courage to put this on. No one else is doing it. There'll be an election on August the 7th. And we don't have enough information out about the candidates. So first of all, thank the NAACP. Second of all, I want to thank you for coming out and being engaged, being an engaged voter, because that's what we need. We need you to continue to be engaged and remind your neighbors and tell someone, because millions of people are being dropped off the rolls today. Millions of people voted in 2008 that will not vote, will not be on the rolls and available to vote later on. So I want to thank the NAACP and their crew for putting this on. I want to thank my opponents for showing up. And I do want to say this. It should be deplorable, and each and every one of you should be disappointed in the fact that you elected an official who made the decision, the conscious decision, not to show up today. And it goes without being said, you put this man in office, and we've had 4 years of this. We've had 4 years of this. Absence. 4 years of absence. And if you want 4 more, that's who you're going to vote for. I'm DeJuan Littlejohn. I'm a candidate for Jackson County Sheriff. I'm number 1 on the ballot. I'm asking you to come out and vote. Come out and vote on August 7th. And thank you, Randy.
I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to have a short break, and then we'll come back with the county and state legislator candidates. I'm Michael Downey. I'm interim chair of the NAACP of Jackson County, serving to represent my leader, Mr. Eugene Stone. Now, after